In lesson 2, we're going to keep looking at angles formed by parallel lines. We'll look at some new terminology and reintroduce some of the terminology that we saw in lesson 1. So to start with, alternate interior angles, or Z angles, are when you have non-adjacent interior angles on opposite sides of a transversal. So these two blue dots that I highlighted are going to be equal. So they're alternate, which means different sides of that transversal and they're interior. In the green dots, you can see kind of the same thing. So these green dots would be equal because they're alternate interior angles. Alternate exterior angles are going to be exterior angles, so outside of that transversal intersecting with the parallel lines. On alternate means like opposite sides. So we have exterior angles, and I'm just going to draw you a picture here, which we learned this in the last lesson. So here's exterior angles. Our interior angles would be inside of those parallel lines that are intersecting that transversal. And then our exterior angles, I'm going to draw in red, are going to be outside of that transversal intersecting those parallel lines. So alternate exterior just means opposite sides on the outside of those parallel lines. All right, so alternate interior angles, we know A equals B. So these are alternate interior angles, so they are equal. Therefore, F and G are also equal. Corresponding angles, we know A would equal C, and we learned that in the last lesson. Those are what we call corresponding angles. And then G and E are also corresponding, as well as D and H, or not D and H, sorry, D and B, as well as F and H. So these are all my corresponding angles, and I'm just gonna erase that highlighter. The alternate exterior angles would be like E and H, they're gonna be equal. And then D and C. So those would be my exterior angles. Also, if you remembered last lesson, I kind of showed you a little trick that I like to call the zigzag effect. So if you zigzag down the transversal between parallel lines, all of those angles are going to be equal. Alrighty, so that was just another strategy that sometimes I use. I use that zigzag effect. So you zigzag down the transversal. Alrighty. Let's keep going. So supplementary angles, we talked about that last lesson. So those are just angles that add up to 180. All right, so let's go ahead and try some questions. So 97 degrees is going to be corresponding right here, and it's opposite angles right here. So we can see 97 degrees, alternate interior angles, they're equal, and then alternate exterior angles are equal. Again, you could also zigzag down the transversal, and all of those highlighted angles should be equal, which is 97. So from here, we're going to use that supplementary angle. So we know over here, because I have a straight line that adds up to 180, this angle will be 180 minus that 93 degrees, or 97 degrees. And that's going to give me 83 degrees. So I have 83 degrees. 83 degrees, 83, and 83. So all of these red are alternate interior. We can see alternate exterior. They are all going to be equal. Okay, moving on. So 101 degrees is opposite to 101 degrees over here. We also know 101 degrees is going to be corresponding to 101 here, and then opposite over here. There we go. And then from there, we know this angle here is going to be 180 minus 101 equals 79 degrees. So I have 79, 79, 79, 79. Perfect. So those are all those angles in red are 79 degrees, and they are all equal to each other. All right, let's keep going here. I'm actually going to zoom in so that we can see this a bit better. Okay, so I know if this is 42, and actually I would recommend try pressing pause, see how many of these angles you can get by yourself, and then press play and see if you did it correctly. So this 42 degrees I know is going to be corresponding or alternate interior angles to this 42 degrees. Let's start there. So this 42 is alternate interior. And there's different ways you could have gone about this. Like you could have said, oh, this 42 is corresponding to this 42, right? And that would also be right. You could have also zigzagged down the transversal. So then D obviously is the supplementary angle. So to find it, I'm going to go 180 minus 42, and that gives me 138. So now I know, and let's make a list down here. So what do we have? B, C, and D. So I know D is 138 degrees. Okay, let's keep going. So if this is 42, this is the opposite angle. Whenever you see that X shape, right, the opposite angles are equal, so this would be 42. Perfect. Let's move over to the other transversal, and sometimes I even like to highlight the transversal in different colors. Some kids like doing that, right? And then you could even use that zigzag effect. So if this is 121, this is 121, and this is 121, so therefore C would be 121. We can also see it's an opposite alternate exterior angle. So C is 121 degrees. Okay, so then finally over here, to find this missing angle, I'm going 180 minus 121, and that gives me 59 degrees. So I know this is 59 degrees. And then lastly, angle B, I'm going to go 180 minus 42 minus 59, and that will give me 79 degrees. So I know angle B is 79 degrees. Great, so those are all my missing angles. Okay, so we'll keep going here to example 2. All right, and again, I would recommend maybe try some of it by yourself, see how much you can do. So this is 79, is opposite to angle 9, which is also 79. So I'm just gonna make a list of my letters so I can fill them out. Oh, that was A, not B, my bad. So A is 79. Okay, so then from here, we could kind of zigzag down that transversal, so we know this would be 79, right? Because it's alternate interior to angle A, and then this would be 79 as well. So B is going to have to be supplementary, so it will be 180 minus 79, which gives me 101 degrees. So angle B is 101 degrees. Now, remember, this is a second transversal. So all these other angles, like the 79 and the 101, we're not using that because we're just focusing on this transversal that I highlighted in yellow. So if this is 103, we can automatically see that C is the supplementary angle because we see that it forms a straight line, so it has to equal 180. So we're going to go 180 minus 103, and that gives me 77 degrees. And there we go. There's all of our angles. Great, we're going to move to the next one. So from here, if this is 88 degrees, G is 88 degrees because it's opposite angles. And then I'm just going to make a list. So I have G, H, I, J. So G is 88. So then J is going to be 180 minus 88, which is 92 degrees. So I know angle J is 92. Okay, and then this one's really hard. So just because it's kind of hard to see the parallel lines and the transversal. So one strategy that I use with kids is I tell them extend the lines. So we're going to try to make this as straight as possible. And then I will focus on one transversal at a time, and that really helps me. So I'm just going to use this yellow highlighter and just ignore, and sometimes visually I will even just like cover that other angle, and that kind of helps me out. So you can see if you ignore the other line, H is actually corresponding with 88. Can you see how they're corresponding angles? 88 degrees is corresponding with H. So that means H is going to be 88 degrees. From here, we have a straight line. Can you see this straight line? We have 88 degrees I and 28 form a straight line. So all three of those angles have to add up to 180. So I'm going to go 180 minus 88 minus 28, and that gives me 64. So I have 64 degrees goes in here. Great, so that is all my missing angles. Great. Okay, so I put example 4 in here because noticing on tests we do have, instead of like writing letters, we'll ask you to label angles, and sometimes kids have trouble with that. So I'm just going to show that to you. So angle ADB, use your pencil and just like trace it. ADB is referring to this angle here. Right, so a lot of times you're looking at the middle angle, but I still think when we get to some more complicated diagrams, it is helpful to actually use your pencil and then trace the lines, and then whatever angles in the middle of those lines, that will help you find it. Okay, I'm going to use that same strategy from before, so I'm going to just extend my parallel lines, and then I'm going to erase this blue line here. And then I'm just going to, from here, highlight this transversal. Beautiful. So I'm looking for ADB. I guess I could do that. What else am I looking for? I'm looking for angle ACD. That would be this one right here. Just so that I know. Oh, actually, I changed this in your notes because you're like, wait, that's not what my notes say. It should be angle BAD. Okay, so that would be this one right here. There we go. Okay, and then the last one is angle CAD. Oh, actually, I didn't have that one in there. There we go. Just those two angles. Perfect. So angle ADB, if this is 30 and we're looking at the highlighted transversal, this will be 30 right here because that is opposite interior angles. So that would be BAD is 30 degrees. Let's write that in there. Now that I have that angle, I can find angle ADB, because do you see this triangle that's forming? So we know triangles add up to 180, so we're going to go 180 minus 30 minus 65, and that gives me 85 degrees. So I know this angle right here is going to be 85 degrees, which is angle ADB. Beautiful. Okay, moving on. So it says problems with more than one transversal. In problems, C and B are supplementary. So C and B are supplementary. Angles, well, C equals D is only true when transversal lines are parallel. So C equals D only happens when you have two transversal lines that are also parallel. All right, let's move on to example 5. So in example 5, we're trying to find some missing letters here. Let's start with, I'm just going to make a little list. So I have A, B, C, D, E, F. Great. Okay, so from here, D is 65 because it's opposite to the 65 over there. Okay, and then I know angle F is also 65 because it's an alternate interior angle. And then angle B is also 65 because it's an opposite angle. So those are all going to be equal to 65. Okay, let's keep going. So for C, if this is 107, I know it's supplementary to angle C. So it's 180 minus 107, which gives me 71 degrees. Oh, let's actually try typing that in our calculator again. That seems wrong. 180 minus 107. 180 minus 107. 73 degrees. I'm like, that looks better. Okay. So I got 73 degrees. So I went 180 minus 107, and that's where angle C comes from because it's supplementary to that 107, so 73 degrees. Okay, so from here, if we're looking at this transversal, which I'm going to just draw in red, we know if this is C, 73, this would be 73. Let's focus on the 107. So 107 is an alternate interior angle to E. So that means E would also have to be 107. And then A would be an opposite angle, so it would also be 107. Okay, great. So we're all done that first problem. Let's go ahead and try the second one. So again, I like to extend my line. So there's my parallel line. Here's my other parallel line. And then I have two transversals, or actually three, but I'm just gonna highlight this blue one first. All right, so to start with, let's look at our transversal here. Okay, so if this is 48 degrees, again, hide any other line. Over here is also going to be 48 degrees, because if we just look at this blue line, and you can even like cover up the other lines, do you notice how those are alternate interior angles? Sometimes I'll even take my paper and like flip it around so that I can see it a bit better. So those are alternate interior angles. That's going to help me find this angle right here because I notice the triangle. So that triangle is going to be 180 minus 48 minus 54. And if I type that in my calculator, I should get 78 degrees. Let's just double check though. I want to double check with my calculator. So I'm going 180. Oh, I put 181. 180 minus 54 minus 48. Does that give me 78? You bet it does. Excellent. Okay. So then if this is 78, this is the opposite angle because we can see that X shape, so it would also be 78. And then if I go 180 minus 78, I get 102. And then this would also be 102. Great. So now we can see another triangle is being formed here. You also might notice, hey, if I were to highlight this other transversal, I can see that if this is 54, the alternate interior angle would be on that side. If you didn't see that, you could also see the triangle and go 180 minus 78 minus 48. That would also give you that 54 degrees right there. Okay, and then the last angle, we could do the other triangle, which is right here. And we're gonna go 180 minus 102 minus 29. Let's go ahead and type that in our calculator, and that's gonna give me this missing angle right here. 180 minus 102 minus 29, and that gives me 49 for my angle. Beautiful. Oh. So 49 degrees. All right, and then I would say that's pretty much all the angles. On a test, we would show you which ones to find, but we pretty much got them all. So let's keep moving then. All right, example 6 says find the unknown angles in the diagram. All right, what do we have here? So I can see this 70 degrees is an opposite angle to angle E. So I know angle E then would have to be 70 degrees. Okay, and I'm just gonna make myself a little list again, and then I can fill the list in. So angle E we said was 70 degrees. Angle D is supplementary, so it's 180 minus 70 gives me 110 degrees. So angle B is opposite, so it's 163. And then angle C is going to be 180 minus 163, and that gives me 17 degrees. Okay, and then angle A, I see that I'm missing over here. If this is a 90-degree angle, and I see that A is supplementary, I would go 180 minus 90, which also gives me a 90-degree angle. And then I don't know where I wrote F, because we actually don't have an angle F. All right, so there's all my missing angles. Last question in our notes. So it says complete the following textbook questions. Oh, I guess I meant to put that down low. So in the diagram, AB equals AC. So they're saying AB, that would be that line segment, is equal to AC. So we are dealing with an isosceles triangle because as soon as we have two sides that are equal, it's isosceles. Then it says angle BAC. So again, use your actual pencil. So BAC. That angle is 124 degrees. So then it's asking us, what is angle B? I'll use another color. BCD. So it's actually asking for this exterior angle here. So what is angle BCD? What is this angle here? So right away, we're going to find the inside angles. Because we know if this is isosceles, these would both have to be the same thing. So we're going to go 180 minus 124. That gives me 56. But then I know both of these angles would have to add up to 56. And because they're both the same, I can actually cut that in half. And that gives me 28. So this angle right here is 28 degrees. Now, if I want to find this exterior angle, I would just go 180 minus 28 degrees. Let's go ahead and punch that in our calculator. So we're going 180 minus 28 degrees, and we get 152. So then our answer will be 152.